Alright, welcome to this explainer. You know, we usually think of world leaders as the absolute pinnacle of power, right? The trendsetters, the rule makers, the folks blazing the trails. But have you ever stopped to wonder who the most powerful people in the world actually look up to? Well, it turns out even United States presidents have heroes they totally obsess over. Today we're exploring the fascinating, hilarious, and honestly, sometimes completely bizarre world of presidential hero worship. Okay, let's dive right into this, because it presents a literally unique problem right at the start of American history. I mean, when you are the very first president ever, who on earth are you supposed to look up to? There was no portrait on the wall to stare at, no former commander-in-chief to copy. George Washington literally had to look all the way back to ancient Rome just to find a hero. And poor John Adams, he had exactly one president to pick from, George Washington, because it was either him or nobody. It's a completely wild dilemma to have. So since there wasn't exactly a long list of predecessors to choose from, early presidents kind of realized they had to start their own fan clubs if they wanted to cement their legacies. And honestly, no one did this better than Thomas Jefferson. He didn't just want successors, the guy wanted an entourage. He essentially built this fiercely loyal following of future presidents who wanted to be exactly like him. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. In 1801, Thomas Jefferson takes office. When he's done, who takes over? His devoted disciple, James Madison, in 1809. Where Jefferson went, Madison followed. And after Madison, boom, another Jefferson protege, James Monroe, steps right up in 1817. Jefferson literally started a sequential trend of copying the boss, locking down the presidency for his own personal fan club for almost a quarter of a century. But, well, not everyone was allowed into the VIP club. Andrew Jackson swore up and down that his absolute hero was Thomas Jefferson. There was just one tiny, microscopic issue with that. Jefferson completely despised him. He thought Jackson was a dangerous hothead, once famously saying, "Sir, your hero thinks you're a maniac who's going to torch the country." It is just a hilariously absurd piece of historical irony. You idolize a guy, and he officially revokes your fan club membership. So what do you do when you get kicked out of your heroes club? You just start your own massive one. Andrew Jackson built an absolute dynasty of superfans. You've got Martin Van Buren, his right-hand man, who essentially rode his coattails into office. You've got James K. Polk, who admired him so much his actual nickname was Young Hickory, like he was basically a Jackson tribute act. Then came Franklin Pierce, a loud and proud Jacksonian Democrat, and James Buchanan, who actually served as Jackson's minister to Russia. Jackson essentially became the new gold standard for a whole generation of leaders. Section 1. Bizarre Shrines and Relics. We are shifting gears here from political strategy to the downright unhinged, bizarre, and deeply personal obsessions. Because some of these presidents didn't just want to emulate their heroes, they literally wanted pieces of them. Take Theodore Roosevelt, arguably the craziest superfan in American history. Fast forward to the night before his 1905 inauguration. Step 1. His Secretary of State hands him a gift. A small gold ring. Step 2. You look closely and see a tiny glass seal on the ring. Step 3. Sealed inside that glass is a lock of Abraham Lincoln's actual hair, cut from his head right after he died. Think about that for a second. Roosevelt raised his right hand and took the oath of office wearing a piece of Lincoln's actual corpse on his finger. And the Secretary of State had attached a note to that ring reading, "Wear it tomorrow, you're one of the men who most appreciate Lincoln." And Teddy did exactly that. Honestly, I leave it up to you to decide. Is taking the oath of office with your hero's hair in your jewelry totally epic or just entirely creepy? Either way, you cannot deny the dedication. Then, of course, we have Franklin D. Roosevelt, who took fandom from a microscopic piece of hair to, well, a monumental scale. FDR's favorite president was Thomas Jefferson, but he didn't just casually talk about it. He used the immense power of his office to literally build a giant marble temple in Washington, D.C., the Jefferson Memorial, and personally dedicated it on Jefferson's 200th birthday. Guys, when your fandom comes with its own taxpayer-funded monument, you officially win the Ultimate Fanboy Award. But sometimes, hero worship goes hilariously, completely wrong. Richard Nixon's absolute favorite president was Woodrow Wilson. Now, the expectation was that when Nixon moves into the Oval Office, he tracks down Woodrow Wilson's exact desk to work from, drawing inspiration from his hero every single day. The reality? He tracked down the desk, all right, but it turns out it belonged to a completely different Wilson who worked in the government. And Nixon, in just a stunning display of pure stubbornness, found out the truth and just kept using the fake desk anyway. But here is the absolute kicker, and it is a wildly tragic, bizarre irony. Nixon had that very desk, the one he picked out of pure hero worship, secretly bugged with hidden microphones. Yep, those recordings became the infamous Watergate tapes. The exact evidence that blew up his presidency and forced him to resign in disgrace came from the desk he idolized. The literal shrine to his hero was the very thing that took him down. You really can't make this stuff up. Section 2, the Lincoln obsession. So the crucial point to understand here is while some presidents loved Jefferson, Jackson, or Wilson, one figure eventually eclipsed even the founding fathers to become the ultimate unifying hero. The Lincoln fan club was just enormous. We are talking about Ulysses S. Grant, Rutherford B. Hayes, James Garfield, Chester Arthur, Benjamin Harrison, Lincoln. It literally seemed like for decades after the Civil War, nearly every single man who walked into the Oval Office pointed directly back to Abraham Lincoln as the greatest man they ever knew. He had a bigger fan club than Jefferson and Jackson combined. And the dedication here was profound. William McKinley wasn't just casually inspired by Lincoln, he was such a fanboy that he literally carried a musket and fought for him in the Civil War as a teenager. That is setting the bar for hero worship incredibly high, don't you think? You aren't just reading your heroes' biographies at that point. You are literally risking your life on the battlefield for their cause. And Lincoln's influence didn't just stop in the 19th century. It stretched all the way into the modern era. Just look at Barack Obama. He announced his run for president in Lincoln's old hometown of Springfield. He took the oath of office on Lincoln's actual Bible. He even built his cabinet structure straight out of a book about Lincoln's leadership. Lincoln has just been quietly winning the presidential popularity contest for over 150 years. Section 3. Crossing political party lines. As we look closer at modern history, we start to find some truly incredible historical plot twists, because frequently, presidents look straight past their own political parties to find their heroes. We usually assume, right, that a Republican will always pick a Republican, and a Democrat will pick a Democrat. But take Ronald Reagan, a modern conservative icon. His hero? Franklin D. Roosevelt, a New Deal Democrat. As a young man, Reagan actually voted for FDR 4 times and could recite his speeches from memory. It is a fantastic reminder that historical admiration often completely ignores partisan boundaries. And the comparisons get even more striking. Democrat Harry Truman absolutely idolized Andrew Jackson, loving his scrappy, fight-from-nothing grit so much that he actually ranked Jackson above Lincoln. Fast forward decades later, and Republican Donald Trump also chose Andrew Jackson as his hero, famously hanging his portrait right there in the Oval Office. You have two vastly different modern presidents, from opposing sides of the political aisle, admiring the exact same historical figure for his outsider anti-establishment energy. And the literal swapping of these heroes plays out right on the walls of the Oval Office. On his very first day, Joe Biden physically took down Donald Trump's portrait of Andrew Jackson. And what did he replace it with? A massive portrait of his own hero, Franklin D. Roosevelt. One president's hero gets swapped out for another's. It's like this ultimate visual representation of the passing of power. Now, what's really interesting about all this is, when you zoom out and look at more than 200 years of American presidents, a staggering pattern emerges. And it all boils down to a single number, 5. Out of all the people to ever live, all the generals, all the geniuses, all the giants, almost every single president's hero loops back to these exact same 5 men. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Left or right, north or south, Democrat or Republican, it is a tiny handful of legends that every single generation just keeps reaching back to grab onto. Which leaves us with this final burning question. Out of all the giants in American history, why do we keep reaching back to the exact same 5 names? What is it about these specific figures that captures the imagination of the people who hold the highest office in the land, time and time again? It's a fascinating look at the cyclical nature of history, and I really hope this explainer has sparked your curiosity to look a little closer at the heroes of our heroes. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep asking questions.